If you're thinking of making a career change, you're in the right place. I'm Yesim Nicholson, and Your Big Career Move is your opportunity to listen to stories from ordinary people who've made extraordinary career changes. I hope you enjoy this conversation, and if you feel inspired to make your own career change, but you're not quite sure where to start, why not buy my book, Ready to Quit Your Job, or join my next career coaching program, both of which you can find at yescareercoaching.com. So I often get asked how I find my guests for this podcast because I've had some really interesting, fascinating guests from all over the world on this show. And the truth is it sort of varies. Sometimes friends of mine will say, oh, you've got to chat to this friend of mine. They're really fascinating. Sometimes people contact me and want to share their story. Sometimes I bully people into coming on the show. And then other times somebody will pop up on my screen very, very randomly. And that's exactly what happened with today's guest, Angela, who did just suddenly appear on my screen. And that is because a little clip of her went completely viral on social media. And that is because Angela was recently on The Chase. And when asked by Bradley Walsh what she did for a living, she completely bamboozled him and everybody else that was listening. And it just really captured the imagination of millions of people across the UK and possibly across the world. I'm not really sure. But when I saw this, I was like, there's no way that I can't at least ask Angela to be on this show because what a fascinating story. And I'm so glad that you agreed to be here today. Thank you so much, Angela. Can't wait
No,
to
it's fine.
hear
Yeah,
and share your story. Amazing.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
It's okay. I do like sharing it. It's quite a good feeling to share, because other people can do it as well. So
Usually I get people to start with what they were doing before their big career move. I think just for today, let's go
yeah,
crazy and turn it
yeah,
on its head. And are you okay to share what you're doing now?
sure, yeah, yeah. So at the minute, I manage a team of technicians, multi-layer insulation technicians. I live sort of 5 minutes away from the Oxford Space cluster, and so yeah, I make the multi-layer insulation, which, as I said, from the Chase is the shiny bits that you see when you look at you see a satellite. Basically, it's a thermal regulator for satellites. It's like a bit like the body. They don't work if they're too hot or they're too cold. So the blankets essentially keep them at a constant temperature, so that if they're facing the sun, it keeps the heat out, and if they're facing deep space, it keeps the heat in. So it's basically a coat.
So it sounds like you're an engineer, but I know that you're not. Spoiler alert. So how does somebody like you end up in a job like this?
So yeah, I was in my previous role I was a crafter. I do hate that term, but I was a crafter. I just made crafts and I used to sell them.
What kind of crafts
And
are we talking?
well, I wasn't. I always felt like a bit of a fraud actually, because it was sort of just basically anything that came into my head. I didn't make jewelry. I didn't make sort of exquisite clothes. I was just basically, my husband called them knickknacks.
Okay.
But I prefer to call them objet d'art, but he calls them knickknacks. So it was sort of like felt flowers, bits of sewn things, Christmas decorations, basically that came into my head, and I thought I'd have a go. I started doing that when my son was born. He's now 26. So it started off with like sort of making cards, and people say, "Oh, can you make me one of these? And can you make me this?" And so yeah. And gradually it grew and grew, and I then formed a business called Crazy Cow Creations, and I then started doing craft fairs. So over time, the house just became overrun with my stuff, every room basically. And I go to craft fairs, and people go, "We can do that. We can do that. We'll go and do it then." And it got to the stage where I thought, actually, I'd like to go back into a proper job, one where I know what I'm going to get paid, where I get paid holidays, where I only have to do it 9 to, because what was happening, because I was working in the house, I'd sort of get up at 6, start work on whatever I was doing, and I'd still be doing it at 10 o'clock at night, having made the dinner and done various things in between.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted something with more structure, somebody that sorted all my, I got paid a proper regular wage, somewhere that the house would become a house again, a home rather than a factory.
Mm-hmm.
But so before that, I was a radiographer, and I'm thinking sort of, so what does a radiographer do that spent 10 odd years making crafts? I don't know. Given that I wanted 9 to 5, and I didn't want to do it weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So it was sort of, I was sat there crafting away, and I just looked at Facebook, and one of the senior managers lived in the village that I live in, and she'd got the comms team to put on Facebook the job description and the job application thing. So they said they wanted at RAL Space wanted a multi-layer insulation technician to make blankets for satellites. Would suit somebody who had a background in crafts. So I'm like, what? Because that, when you say blanket to somebody, what comes to mind is a blanket, So am I going to be knitting it or weaving it? I don't know. And I was like intrigued as to what these blankets were. What were they for? How have they made? But I'd been out of the sort of like the general workforce for quite a while, and it was sort of like, shall I apply? Shall I apply? Shall I apply? Shall I apply? And I think I probably pressed the send button about 5 minutes before the closing time. And yeah, so I went for the job, got the job, and that was 7 years ago. So
That is incredible. Did you look at other jobs, or was that literally the first thing that you came across when you decided you wanted to be back in the workforce?
that was because I think I was still at the sort of stage like of deciding what my skill set was applicable to. And to be honest, I mean, there's nothing wrong with working in Sainsbury's or anything like that, but I didn't want to do that. But I thought that was what I was going to end up doing, because I couldn't see where my skill set fitted. Now I can look back and think I was stupid, because the radiography bit, the running the house bit, the running your own business bit, there's many skills that that you accumulate without even knowing it. And so I think I was still at the stage of like, what am I going to do? What shall I do? And I saw that and thought, oh, maybe it's a sign from God, So yeah, I think I was still I hadn't decided where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. I was still at that cogitating stage of, I don't want to be doing this for the next 10 years, sort of thing.
Yeah. So it was literally the first job you applied for?
Yeah.
And you got it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really fascinating to hear you say that, and it's really refreshing to hear you say that you had all these skills now when you look back of running your own business and being a radiographer and all of this. And often when I coach people who want to make a big career change, and often they say, well, I don't really know what I have to offer. And maybe it is just retrospectively that people go, oh, actually, yes, I did have these skills. Did you feel like you had all those things to bring to the table at the time?
I think it probably helped not having a bloody clue what the job entailed. So I think the thing for me mainly was the lack of computer skills. I think that was a big doubt in my mind as to whether I could bluff my way through that, if you like. Because I mean, when I was at school, I think we had one computer. It got wheeled in, on a stand, and and then it got wheeled out again. We didn't sort of have, So I think the thing is, I'm quite curious, and I'm quite eager to learn, and I'm quite driven. So I was of a positive mindset, but knew it would be a steep learning curve, and boy, it was. But I think what they were looking for was somebody with dexterity, essentially.
How do you prove dexterity to somebody that doesn't know you, and you literally have, I don't know how many interviews you went for, but how do you prove that?
So we went into the sort of the interview with two guys, and there were several, quite some technical questions, some not so technical, but they'd covered something on the International Space Station, And so they had a little wooden model of it, and he gave me that and said, how would you cover that? This bit's a camera, how would you cover that in insulation? So I had a quick look, and I just sort of said, have you got a piece of paper that I can use to play with? I think in retrospect that was quite a good thing, because it showed them that I was going to, sort of experiment with things, and I wasn't just going to sit there and go, oh yeah, maybe, I was hands-on, if you like. I also took with me some of the things that I made. It did turn into a bit of a craft fair. I've made this, and I did this one, and I've taken ideas from concept to production, and it sounded very grand. And so one of the blokes said, oh, so that's machine sewn then, is it? And I said, well, no, I've hand sewn that. So I think, he was quite impressed with that, I think. But then we all went into the clean room separately, but we all went in and did a little test piece. And then I've since found out that everybody's test piece goes to the interviewers, and they have a look, say, oh yeah, that one, they don't know whose is whose. No, that's good, that's good, or that's not so good, or whatever. So you get to do a little test piece, and then but basically that's all they've got to go on. A little test piece, and whatever you take to the interview with you.
That's amazing. So RAL Space, I mean, it's kind of quite ingenious of them to think outside the box, and no disrespect to you, of course, but presumably they started out looking for engineers that might be able to do this job.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the first thing you think of, is it, to get somebody that's good at sticking things together. So yeah, they had run, I think, a couple of recruitment campaigns and not had any takers in an engineer aspect. So I think they rethought it, senior managers and together with HR, and thought, actually, what is this job and what skills are we looking for? And then came up with the fact that actually they were looking for the wrong skills.
Why do you think they didn't get applicants from engineers?
If I'm totally honest, which I will be, I am, I think the money was a lot to do with it. I think at the time, it's actually gone, it's gone up a lot now, the basic salary. But at the time, it was what I would say was not a very good salary. So it wouldn't appeal to anybody who had, say, just come out of university, or who had responsibilities, like a mortgage or something like that. It was definitely a job that probably somebody who wasn't the main breadwinner, wasn't looking to buy a house in Oxfordshire, was going to go for, if I'm quite honest. But I think actually that although sort of I'm not an engineer, I now manage the team. I sort of interact with stakeholders. So the learning curve was almost vertical. I like a challenge, and I've sort of put myself on all these courses and things. I think if you want, you can go wherever you want. Basically, I could have just stayed there, making blankets and been quite, happy with that. But like I say, I'm quite driven, so I wanted more. I've almost done it in reverse. I've gone from sort of like a job that was quite, stress free, a bit like happy clapping, to one that's quite stressful. I started off part time. I didn't work Monday. I worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, and it got to Friday lunchtime. I'm thinking, I'm going to go home. I want to finish what I'm doing. And then on the Monday, I'll be thinking, oh, what they're doing. I just went full time.
And there was obviously that flexibility for you to do that.
Yes. I think it was dependent on, obviously the work that they had in there. I think at the time, I think it was actually before the law came in, where you've got to offer part-time. And I think that was another sort of another bit of lateral thinking, because I think they knew that if they were going to get people who, had families, and that they would have to offer part-time. So I think they actually wanted 2 technicians, and they got 3 part-time. So so they filled the hours that way.
And I think I read that you were all ladies that weren't engineers.
Yeah.
And you sort of sidestepped into these roles.
Yeah. One was a We're all still up there, although the other two have moved roles. So yeah, one was a cake maker, one was I think she made jewellery, I think, and she was also a hypnotist, hypnotherapist, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So yeah, we were quite a diverse
Yeah.
recruitment. Yeah.
Well, it keeps it interesting as well, doesn't it? If you've got a team with very diverse
Yeah.
backgrounds and skills, it's
Exactly.
quite
Yeah,
fun.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And
So,
we all sort of brought ideas that they hadn't thought of,
yeah.
you know.
Well, how
So
cool is that? Well, this is it,
yeah,
because you come at it with completely fresh eyes, I suppose, and not
yeah, that's right.
necessarily the engineering head,
Yeah,
and you would come at
yeah,
it with a different perspective,
yeah,
I suppose.
that's right.
So how long did you have off between when you gave up work to have your kids and then going into this role 7 years ago? What was the time that you were doing your own thing?
Don was born 1998, and so yeah, what's that?
That's
19
almost,
years.
yeah, that's a long time.
quite quite a long
What,
time. Yeah.
like, what were did you have any fears when you went back into employment?
I think, like I said, I think the computer thing was a major thing, because obviously I'm going into an environment where they're all, really computer whiz kids, and it's like, oh my god. And then I got asked to make this document, and I'm thinking, oh my god. And I think I sat there sweating for ages, and I didn't have a clue. I thought I did. I thought I did, because with my business, I did have a spreadsheet, but it was only one. It was one page, about two columns. So, and I did my, the application letter and the application form and everything. So when they say, can you do Word and Excel, it's like, yeah, I could do
Sure, no problem.
that. No, no.
How did you overcome that then when you actually started work and they're like, okay, we need you to do this, this, and this? Did you just work it out, or did you fess up to the fact that you really weren't sure what you were doing?
So several things really. So I think the main job was making blankets, and I knew that I was dexterous. I'd worked in clean rooms before, so I was thinking that I could do that bit. I remember my boss coming up to me and sort of saying, I was saying, like, I said, I'm frightened of pressing the wrong button, because where I'd come from, if you cut something, you've cut it, and it's, you can't fix it, sort of thing. So if I press that button, am I going to break it? Am I going to break it? Am I going to lose it? Because I didn't know. Yeah. So it's really fear of the unknown. And he just sat there and he said, we've got an IT department right at the bottom of the corridor. So if you do anything wrong, don't worry, because they can fix it. I thought, oh yeah. The thing about STFC is so it started off as a research organisation originally. So it's very into learning and sending people on courses and professional development and all this stuff. So, like I say, I've been on numerous courses, line management courses, all sorts of things. And so I went on a Word course and I went on an Excel course, and people will help you if you ask. If you're not too proud to say, actually, I don't know how to do this, can you help me? Yeah, of course I can. Yeah. And so it was quite a nurturing environment. It was an environment where I didn't feel, probably the environment and a bit of my personality, I didn't feel, I wasn't backward at coming and saying, actually, can you show me how to do this, please? Because I'm not quite sure. So, it just worked, really.
Well, there was one thing that I was really curious about, and now listening to you, I think I've probably got my answer, but I'll ask you anyway.
Yeah.
But because I mean, potentially there could have been a little bit of snobbery from engineers that are working there that have,
Yeah.
put a lot of, I don't know, time, effort, money, sweat,
Mm.
tears into their
Mm.
careers to get
Yeah.
into those jobs.
Yeah.
How, what was their response to you and these other two ladies who didn't have an engineering degree, who sort of
Mm.
waltzed in with your, you know, crafting,
Yeah. Yeah.
crafting ladies? What was the
Yeah.
response to that?
Yeah. So I think at first it's a bit like a zoo, like a bit weird, aren't they? But I think I think everybody was really accepting. I think maybe at first there was a little bit of, I mean, like one bloke said to me, maybe only about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't know, you lose track of time, don't you? He said, I needed a powered screwdriver because we'd left ours over in the other office. And I went and said, oh, have you got a power screwdriver I can borrow? He said, oh yeah, somewhere. He said, do you know how to use it? Yeah, I know. And so I sort of went, yeah. What I should have said was, no, can you show me how to, can you show,
Hindsight.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But that's the only sort of a bit condescending thing anybody's ever said, which in 7 years I suppose is okay.
Yeah.
But no, I think everybody's been quite accepting. Yeah. And now, they ask our advice, and we're the experts on, what we do.
Yeah, amazing. What's
Yeah.
your advice to anybody that's, particularly women, I think, who do take a bit of a career break, and sometimes it's obviously the man that takes the break. But for somebody who has taken an extended career break and maybe experimented with other things and now wants to go back into the workforce, what's your advice, having gone through what you've gone through?
I think when people ask me that, my first answer was, don't be afraid to have a go. What you're going to lose, what have you got to lose? You have a go. If you like it, it's like, you made it great. If you're not, you haven't lost anything, go and try something else. So don't be frightened to lose. Now, as about like 10 days ago, I'm sort of thinking, like, actually, employers want reliable, a workforce that they know is going to turn up, they know is going to work. And I think older people, have more, it's a bit sort of controversial to say this, but I think older people have more of a work ethic, like, than other younger generations. And there are multiple, if you write down all the things that you can do, it'd be a really long list, and somehow there'll be something in there that fits to what you want to do, because you want to do it because you like doing it, because it's part of your skill set. So just sort of think a bit laterally, and fit your skill set to what they're asking for.
Yeah.
And just go for it, and I also think this is hard to do, but interview them, because they're going to give you a job and they're going to pay you, but at the end of the day, you've got to be happy there. It's got to be a place that you want to work. Got to be people that you feel, actually, they're all right, I feel quite okay about them. And if you don't, just walk away.
Did you do that? Did you interview them, or
No,
are you giving this advice retrospectively?
Partly. One of the questions I asked was, why do you like working here? What do you like working? What do you like about working here, and what bits of it do you enjoy? But I think now I would have more confidence to push them a bit further. Let's say, sort of like, what are you going to do for me? Where am I going to be? If I come working for you, what are you going to do to, like, further my career? What are you going to do to, train me in this and that and the other? And what can you offer me? I know what I can offer you, and what can you offer me?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to be honest, some that might go down really badly with some interviewers, but I think you've got to be true to yourself. You've got to be true to yourself.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more with you. And I think sometimes, especially women, I think we're scared to put too much value on ourselves somehow.
Yeah, well, there's the thing about if men have got 60% of the job qualifications, they will apply. Women have got to have 110% before they'll apply. So it's
which is ridiculous, because I think exactly like you've just proven, you didn't have an engineering degree and you can still do the job perfectly well, and then get promoted as well into a more senior role, which is really awesome to hear.
Yeah.
What do your friends and family make of this journey that you've been on?
I think they think it's quite cool. It's not the run of the mill job, it's so, I mean, some are interested, some aren't, but my mum just always says, have you been busy?
But your sons must think it's pretty cool.
think, yeah, it probably does. Yeah, my husband does. My husband thinks it's cool. Yeah, yeah. In fact, it's quite funny because because the LinkedIn thing about the chase, one of Andy's LinkedIn contacts put it on his thing, so it came up on my husband's page, but from somebody else. So it was really funny. That was really weird. So,
What, I
yeah.
mean, the whole chase thing, why did you go on the chase in the first place? Did you just fancy being on a TV quiz show?
No, the honest answer is I do like quizzes. I do like quizzes. I've always liked, general knowledge and that sort of thing. I was up at my sister's in Manchester and I would probably had a wee bit too much wine. And I don't know why, but we ended up filling out the application form, and we were just thinking of ludicrous answers to the questions. What would you do with the money? And I think one of the questions was, what do you do for a living? And I thought, okay, this will get their attention. So I filled it in, and then about 6 months later, I was actually in Scotland, and the phone went off, and it's the chase. Oh, okay. So it was sort of a bit of a laugh, really. And then, be careful what you do when you've had too much wine.
Are you glad you did it?
Yeah, I am glad I did it, because it was really, I mean, despite all the aftermath, the day was really good. Yeah, really enjoyed
How did you
it.
do?
Yeah.
Because I didn't watch the actual show. I've only seen the clip. Did you get
No,
on okay?
So no, I got knocked out on the last question, and it was, so with work, I've worked in Turkey and I've worked in Germany.
Oh, right.
On different projects.
Yeah.
And we were in Turkey for a month, and every day from the hotel to the aerospace place, somebody had to give an interesting fact about Turkey. And one of the guys said, oh, Turkey is the largest producer of cherries in the world. Okay, so the final question on this chase thing was something about Turkish wrestlers, but do they cover themselves in olive oil, castor oil, or baby oil? Mm-hmm. So logically, the first thing that came to mind was, well, I know it's the largest producer of cherries, so if it's covered in cherry trees, it can't be covered in olive trees. So I pressed castor oil, but of course it's olive oil. So yeah, so I got knocked out on that one, and consequently they call me Olive at work. But no, it was a really great experience. Yeah, it was.
And how did you cope with suddenly millions of people watching this clip of you?
Well, it was really funny because so I didn't tell anybody at work that was going on here. I think I told the two in the office, but I didn't tell anybody else. And so a couple of days later, I was in the coffee room, and this woman was staring at me. And she came up and she said, "Excuse me." She said, "Were you on telly?" She said the other day. Oh yeah, yeah. And I never thought anything more of it. And people were saying, "Oh, God, I saw you on the chase." Yeah, okay, yeah, right. But then comms team came down and said, "Are you on Instagram? Or are you on Twitter? Are you on Twitter?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Oh, right." She said, "Well, Heritage Crafts have got hold of a clip on the chase, and they posted it, and it's gone bonkers." Oh, okay. So, and then I started getting sort of contacted from all over the place. So I've been I was on local radio, local TV wanted an interview, Space Centre in Leicester, somebody at work wanted an interview. Loads of people, yeah, it's gone really.
Me. Everybody wants a piece of you, Angela.
Yeah,
But it's just such a fabulous story, I think, because I, one of the things I really get my clients to do is try to think outside the box a little bit, because it's very easy to get caught up in the box of, I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, I'm a this, I'm a that.
Yeah.
And we don't often stop to look at, well, what are the skills that I've got? What are the unique things that I'm going to bring to a role? And you're just this beautiful example of how, if we think outside the box, we can find the perfect person for a role that we might not find otherwise. So when I saw this clip, I was like, this is, Angela is the epitome of what I talk about with a lot of my clients. So
I think you sort of need a synergy, don't you, of the person that's looking for something that actually they're not, they never thought of doing, and also a recruitment drive that's actually seeing outside the box sort of thing.
100% that. And one of the things that I ask all my guests is, what's your definition of success, and has it changed over the years for you?
Definition of success. So when I started off as a radiographer, I I've always I've always been one of these really irritating people, even as a kid. That you get these kids who they try swimming and they win the race, and they go running and they win the race, and they do something else and they win the race. And I somehow I was one of those kids. Yeah. So I suppose, God, this sounds awful. I suppose success was winning. I'm not proud of saying that. It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't really sit well with me. But anyways, that's the truth. And then when I became a radiographer, obviously I wanted to get promoted. And then I had my son. And then I think your values or aims or whatever change slightly. You become, I say, probably more of a rounded person. It's about the good times and about the fun times, and you don't have to win. It's about having a good time. You don't have to win. It's more like taking part, not the winning. I think now, in my dotage, it's sort of being happy. Success is being happy and not having to do something you don't want to do. You're very, in a fortunate position if you can do that. But it's like it's stroking your dogs, and it's having a glass of wine, and seeing the sunrise and hearing laughter and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the simple things.
Yeah, the simple things. Yeah, yeah.
I think age does that to us, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
more aware of how important the small things are that we take for granted sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you mind me asking how old you are?
Yeah, I'm 59 at the minute.
Okay. And are you anywhere near thinking about retirement?
It's a hard question. Yes, I'm thinking of retiring, but I don't know. There are too many other things, like my son and my husband job, although he works from home, so he could actually work anywhere. My mum's up in Manchester, my sister's in Manchester. So I think there are too many things going on at the moment for me to make a big change. But it is something that's at the back of my mind. Yeah. But then again, you never know, do you? You never know what's around the corner. I mean, I wouldn't have said 7 years ago, I wouldn't have said I'd be sitting here talking to you about making space blankets and having been on the telly.
But that's the beautiful thing about life, isn't it? It's the unpredictability and not knowing what's around the corner.
Yeah. And I think certainly my son thinks that, once you get set on a path, that's it. You're going down that path. But hardly any of my friends, I don't think any of them had quite as much of a curveball as I have. But hardly any of my friends do what they did when they left school.
It's been so fascinating to hear your story. It's
a pleasure.
Really inspiring, and I really can't wait to share it with other people, because it is brilliant. And I think hopefully people will listen to this and go, yeah, okay, I can go for that job that doesn't seem like it's within reach, but why not? Just try it, see what happens. And
sky's the limit, or space is the limit.
This is it, exactly that. I see that you've been used as the poster girl a little bit, haven't you, for RAL Space now?
I have actually, yeah.
That's great. Why not? I love it.
Yeah, we have a staff meeting every month, and it's this sort of say, "Oh, you got another mention there," in a laughing way. So,
fame at last.
Unintentionally, but yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, it's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Inspiring other people, and I wish you all the very best.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully people will find it interesting, and it will give people some ideas as to what they can do, and give them confidence to actually do it.
I'm absolutely certain it will. Thank you.